Hello, everyone. We're
Hey,
back.
Nick.
Hello, Mark.
Hey, Nick.
We're back. We're ready, and we're refreshed from spring break. And I sure hope you enjoyed yours, or are enjoying yours. I'm here with my esteemed partner in crime, Martin Valko. Hey, Martin. How
Hey,
was your
Nick.
break?
It was fantastic. Uh,
That's the
well,
cue,
there,
right?
there you have it. When you
uh,
say fantastic, you throw a picture from a beach. So, but no, it was great. It was awesome to be back in Mexico. We love going down to Mexico with my family, and we just have this one spot in Cancun that we go to, and it's you know just beautiful beaches,
yeah.
sun, great people, and so that week was really needed, long awaited, and had time to catch up with my kids that I don't get to see a lot with my wife, and so it was fun. Where did you go?
I went to Colorado, but I thought we were gonna put up the Joe. I thought we were gonna put up the David Hasselhoff picture, where he's like Adonis there. Maybe for another show, I guess.
Probably.
I went to Colorado. I went to Colorado. It was great. I visited some friends. Been there
Where's your picture
once.
from Colorado, Joe?
Well, where is it, Joe? I don't think I gave one to Joe. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. But yeah, we got back and we're ready and refreshed. And um, but before we delve in, and we got a lot of ground to cover because it's been quite a busy week in the immigration world. And but before that, I'd like to remind everyone if they can just help us reach our immediate goal of 1,000 followers, that would be so great. We're just so happy to pass 600, which we recently did. And I know it might be few compared to other shows and podcasts, but we truly appreciate you listening in. So if you like our show, or if some of the information might be useful to someone please share it, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, this show is live. And so if you have a question that has been really nagging you, and you just really want to spit it out, well, this is the place. So we'll,
Spit
we'll
it
be
out.
glad to answer it. There, I'm done with my spiel, Martin. So let's get on with it. Um, and yesterday we got some really good news from the White House. Since the conflict in Ukraine, when it began, we started really pushing for some relief for Ukrainians. And what can you tell us about the latest push or announcement, Martin?
Well, it was what we were discussing a couple of weeks ago, and that was announcement of some type of relief for refugees. So we already mentioned the TPS, the temporary protected status for those that have been in the U.S. since March 1st, but again, that only applies to people in the U.S. And so the Biden administration and President Biden yesterday in Europe announced a refugee resettlement, which would allow people from abroad, so Ukrainians that are not in the U.S. but outside of the U.S. To apply. Now we don't have the details of the policy, and they will be coming out. So that's why you should follow and check with us regularly to see if any details had come out. But it is basically going to allow for people to come in and live here temporarily, and then we'll see if there's going to be any other policy or legislation. But it will allow people. I think the announcement was allowing up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees to temporarily live in the U.S. So we have the TPS, temporary protected status. Now with this refugee program, that's going to provide the relief to those that are outside. We've also seen people that have relatives, and typically before it was a need to have an immediate relative, which is a parent or a child under the age of 21 or a spouse of a U.S. citizen in the U.S. in order for the consular officers to consider issuance of, for example, tourist visa so they can come to the U.S. And that still is in place, and hopefully that's going to continue. But when you're going to have Ukrainians, because we've seen I've heard some reports of Ukrainians at the southern border that are trying to come in, and there are all types of stories about people applying for asylum, but what will be available is the humanitarian parole. And so whenever they are already at the border, and we've seen some reports of people being processed under the humanitarian parole, and that's a parole admission, not an admission, but basically parole into the U.S. for a period up to a year. And then once the person is in the U.S., they'll be able to apply for employment authorization for a work permit.
Yeah, that's cool. I was watching the news this morning, and they were saying that there's just pockets of Ukrainian Americans living throughout the United States, and they're in New York and Chicago, and some in Texas. Do you know here in North Texas, Martin, there's any communities, Ukrainian?
There are communities in North Texas,
Yeah.
certainly, and just like across the U.S. But the reports that we're hearing and reading is that people are trying to unify and reunite with their family members. So, and I think that's going to be much easier for somebody to make the transition and to be able to be paroled into the U.S. and then reunite with their family members. So. There was a report about a newlyweds where the U.S. citizen was in the U.S. They went through the process, but the process, even though if you're married to a U.S. citizen, could take up to 2 years, going through the petition and then the immigrant visa process. And so this particular lady came to the southern border, and she was paroled in, and then she'll be able to basically just amend that process. So instead of going through the consular processing and finishing the process in Ukraine, she'll be able to file for adjustment for a green card in the U.S. So it's just certainly something that we've been calling for in the last few weeks. And then, it slowly kind of rolled in with the TPS being announced, and now the refugee program. So stay tuned for the details, but certainly it's great news for those that are displaced due to this horrific war that is taking place.
Yeah, certainly good development. So moving on, as I mentioned, this is pretty busy, crazy week in terms of immigration news, and this week a federal judge in Ohio blocked some of the parts of DHS's priority enforcement policy. And I don't know if you all remember that last September, DHS, they under Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, they announced a new policy for officers to decide when to arrest, when to detain, when to deport someone who doesn't have any immigration status here, or maybe has been convicted of a crime or in violation of some law. And under that policy, they said focus on the threats to public safety and focus on those who are coming in and crossing the border, and look at those individuals to see if you should arrest, detain, or deport. And the rest of the individuals who are here, if they don't have a criminal record, just leave them alone. Well, under this guidance, for those who are, for those people that they are thinking to deport, they have to go through this. The agents have to go through this factor test. They're supposed to weigh a bunch of factors, including the person's criminal record, the time that they've lived in the United States, how serious was that offense. They have to weigh all that in before they decide to place the person under arrest or deport the person or detain them. The judge here, and we know it's been so political, right? It's been up and down, but this judge, appointed by President Trump, that was bad. I'm going to practice my Trump, I promise. But he was appointed by Trump, and he said, no, DHS does not have discretion. Those ICE officers out in the field, they do not have discretion when it comes to immigrants who have committed certain crimes and are subject to what are referred to as the mandatory detention rules. So if you commit a certain offense, that could mean that that person will be detained without a bond. And also for individuals who have final orders of removal. And the judge said those two groups, you don't get to decide if the person's lived here, if they have family ties. You just have to detain them and execute whatever order you have. And so, this case decision comes following a report by ICE saying that they have there's a record low arrests have been made throughout the United States, and they're talking about close to 59,000 people were arrested this last year, as opposed to a couple of years ago, which was 185,000 people. And so they're saying the people who support tighter measures are saying, look, you see, you guys are not doing your job. And DHS is saying, no, we are doing our job. It's just that we have to prioritize it. It's like any other police department. The police officer is not going to give a ticket to every person they stop. They're going to look to see if if they can give them a warning or there are other circumstances. And so to give everybody a ticket would just flood the courts, and that's what they want to prevent. So those are the two. That's where the tension arises from those two interests.
Speaking of tickets and police officers, that not everybody gets a ticket. You heard about me getting a ticket on the bicycle, right?
Of course.
Why? I should have been that not getting a ticket. And I asked the guy, I said, are you serious? Are you going to give me a ticket for not coming to a complete stop, not unclipping my feet, and he said, yes, I will. And it cost me $294.
Did the officer know that you are honorary consul of the country of Slovakia? Maybe you could have.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think he cared. So, but it was, you don't get. Sometimes you get off, right? I mean, you get warnings, and so I thought, like, I certainly did not, get anybody in any kind of danger, and didn't want to endanger myself, and so you slow down, you look, and he said, nope, gonna give you a ticket. So yeah. Anyways, it's what there was something else this week as well. The President Biden had reversed one of Trump's policies. What was that about?
Yeah, remember Trump, the guy that goes, let's deport everybody. Oh, that was better. Well, there was this, you might hear it in the news, so I'm going to explain it. It's this term used, expedited removal. It's just a fancy word for fast deportation or rapid deportation. And for those individuals under the law, under immigration law, for those who are crossing in the United States, there is a process where it's an accelerated process for deportation. So the person shows up, they don't have any visas or any other entry document. The government can detain them and expel them without them appearing before a judge. So that's why it's called expedited removal. Well, Trump, right, under the administration and within the spirit of restrict immigration, they went ahead and interpreted this law to mean that if an immigration agent finds anyone in the United States, it doesn't matter if it's on the border, anywhere, and it doesn't matter if the person was here less than 14 days, which, by the way, was the prior rule. They're going to expeditedly process you and deport you quickly without you seeing a judge. And so that was a concern for a lot of individuals who are here, and they've lived here for over 2 years, and under the Trump rule, if you lived here less than 2 years, you were out of here without seeing a judge. So I'm really happy, or a lot of us are really happy, that the administration finally just put an end to this rule with respect to ICE enforcement. So we can rest in peace now. Well, that's the wrong word. Not rest in peace. We could rest without having any concerns about immigration picking up our clients who are living in the United States. They can't just pick them up and deport them without due process.
And you mentioned the 100-mile zone, so that's basically, it's been established. So it's within the borders, and we often hear a question from DACA grantees, for those that have DACA deferred action, and they ask, can I go to San Diego? Can I go to the border towns we'll be traveling through? And so, as long as you have DACA, and sometimes people have immigration history, they may have been removed, but as long as you have DACA, and if you have any kind of other issues, perhaps criminal record or removal orders, do consult with an attorney. But if you are fairly you have a clean background, then you shouldn't worry about traveling within those 100 miles. And that's sometimes it's also referred to as the rowing border. And so you have these moving checkpoints, and so you could be stopped, and a lot of times people don't understand that, especially like when I talk to some people from Europe, they're like, well, what do you mean you have the border physically moves? It's like, no, it's just within those 100 miles you have these checkpoints. And so that's a question that comes up quite often.
Yeah. So now, with this Trump era rule being eliminated, now people can rest soundly. They don't have to concern themselves with immigration knocking on the door and deporting them. So it's a good development. Moving on, and this is news in your area, buddy. You got E and L visas. What? There's a new policy. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it is a very welcome news, and this has been going on for close to 20 years, where you have spouses under the or over the age of 21 of certain investors, and multinational employees. It really refers to the E and L classification. E being the treaty trader, treaty investor, L being the intracompany transferee, manager, specialized knowledge worker. And so, when you have family moving to the U.S., you have spouses, you have wives or husbands joining the principal beneficiaries, the principal non-immigrants, and those both the spouses in both of these categories were allowed to work. There was some contentions between those two categories. There were some arguments being made that that person is allowed to work and be employment authorized incident to status, but it really wasn't anywhere written. It wasn't a policy. And so there was a lawsuit that was basically settled last November, and that allowed for employment authorization for these spouses to be incident to status, right? So the biggest issue is waiting for the employment authorization in the past. So when you had a spouse join the principal, they'd come to the U.S., they were admitted in dependent E or L status, E1, E2 dependent, or L2, and then they would have to apply for a work permit. But if it just took a month or a few weeks, that's one thing. But it was taking 10 months, 12 months, and so it was insane. And then it comes out, and you are admitted for 2 years, and you're waiting for 12 months to get an employment authorization. You can get employed, and then you have to reapply, and you're going to lose your job because your validity would expire. And so they made it incident to status. So Customs and Border Protection now basically just they add a little S, so E1S, E2S, L2S, and that means that it's a dependent that is employment authorized. And with that, they don't have to apply for a work permit. They can use the I-94, which is the admission record. They can print it from the CBP online website from the portal, and they get to use it with the employer and the HR to complete the employment authorization verification form, the I-9. And so they basically used it as it's called the document C, with an ID and that, and so that's accepted employment authorization. So it's just a great news, because that's been something for almost 2 decades that been going back and forth, but there's really no formal policy. And so really stoked about it for our spouses of our business clients, employees.
Great.
So
it's awesome.
Big news.
Speaking of business visas, we have a question here, and Anna May asks, when will the H-1B lottery results, when are they going to be out?
Well, starting, I believe it's going to be next week or the April 1st. That's generally when they're going to be running it, and then we'll see if there's going to be multiple rounds on May. So, as you know, this past year, for the fiscal year 2022, we've had 3 rounds, and we'll see, how many initial applicants there will be. As you know, the system still allows for multiple registrations of the same individual by multiple employers. And so I think that's what's kind of throwing off the initial number of registrations. And we're just talking here within attorneys within the office on the EB side that they probably could reach up to 450,000 registrations this year. And when you think about it, you got 65,000 plus 20,000 for the advanced cap. So you're talking about 85,000 visas or numbers for 300, 350, 400, 450,000 registrations. So they should be coming out pretty soon. And then again, if you don't get selected, hopefully there should be a round 2 or 3 and on. So hopefully maybe even 4. We'll see how many will get filled up within those few rounds. But thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Anna May. Moving on, Asylum Rule that was recently announced, and people have some people are happy about it, other people are concerned about it. And this new asylum rule comes as a result of the court delays that we're seeing. And you hear them in the news. You see stories that people have been waiting for their immigration court hearing for years. And there was a report that says that there's about 1.7 million cases right now in immigration court. And so what this new rule is designed is to give USCIS, which is not the immigration court, it's an agency, to give its officers more authority to process asylum claims that are made at the border. Basically, a person crosses in, requests asylum. That person is supposed to have what's called a credible fear interview, where the officer interviews them and sees if there's a credible fear of returning back. They don't go through the whole story, but they're just looking at some elements of their story. And then what normally occurs is, after this credible fear determination, if the officer believes, this asylum officer thinks that there is enough to it, then they can refer the case over to immigration court. And that's where the problem is we're seeing this bottleneck, this traffic jam of people who are waiting to have their day in court. So the administration thought, well, let's share the burden, right? Or shift the burden, I should say, over to another agency, because the immigration court, they're already backlogged, and there are a lot of delays there. And so under this new rule, the USCIS is supposed to make a decision in 90 days. And that, I think that's scaring some people, and rightfully so, because 90 days, you and I know, Mark, it's a short period of time to prepare someone for asylum. and there's a lot of requirements and elements to it. 90 days, I think, is short time to prepare, and doesn't give them enough time to speak with an attorney or look for an attorney, what have you. But
Who's doing? I'm sorry. Let me just stop you right there. Who's doing the CFI, the credible for determination? Is it going to be the CBP agents or?
no, it's going to stick it could be bunched in under USCIS, and so
Okay.
they're going to be doing the whole shebang, if you will. But the immigration courts will be used more of an appeals court. So if the USCIS,
Yeah.
after they make a decision, if they deny asylum, then the applicant could submit their appeal and have an immigration court review it. But resources, I haven't seen any movement. And how are
Right.
they going to get people? They need to acquire more judges. Number one, they need to get more officers, USCIS officers, if they're going to do this, because
My
90 days.
concern, I just saw something come through. There's
Yep.
additional 25 immigration judges were installed recently. It just came through a few minutes ago.
Oh wow.
My concern, Nick, is as anybody else with asylum. I mean, it's highly technical, and
Yeah.
people at the asylum offices, there are only a few of them across the country, and they're trained to adjudicate these. And my concern is that if you're going to throw new, maybe untrained or unprepared, not as trained as the other ones, will there be, like, they'll
Yeah.
process more cases, but I just wonder what was going to be the rate of error, if you will, that you're going to have to appeal it just based
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's like you said, it depends on how you look at it, from which side you look at it.
Right.
Because there's certainly a huge delay, and in some cases the delay benefited the applicants sometimes, right? Because it's just like, well, I got in, I filed it, then I qualified for the work permit, for the employment authorization, so they got it, and then they just waited, and so a lot of times it benefited people, but so we'll see
Yeah.
what will be the outcome of this.
Yeah. Definitely pros and cons. One other silver lining, I think, is that, well, it's maybe a sign that the administration wants to stop using this public health law to expel people. This what they call Title 42, right? And this is a public health law, and this was used by Trump, the administration, as a reason, or a way to control the border migration, and they used COVID for it. Now, the Trump administration only proposed to have it for 30 days, but it was extended. And then
Mm-hmm.
after Biden came in, we were all thinking it's going to go away. But for political reasons, Biden kept this policy when he became president. But it's a very, very controversial and very divisive and very political. Just a couple of weeks ago, appellate court ruled that the government could not use Title 42 to expel individuals to countries where they face persecution. So maybe this will alleviate that. But on that very same day, another court said, yeah, you can. so perhaps maybe this is a sign that we'll see Title 42 being used less and less.
Did you catch by any chance the application or exception to applying Title 42 at the border with the current war going on between Russia and Ukraine? That that the Title 42 is not really being used against Ukrainians, and it
Right.
wasn't even prior to the announcement of the refugee resettlement policy. So I understand it, but from what I understand also is that the Russian nationals are being kept away and kept in Mexico because of the application of Title 42. And so, looking at it just from the neutral standpoint, you have lots of Russians fleeing the oppressive regime, people
Right.
that are truly eligible for asylum. But my concern is that you're going to have this overzealous CBP agent who may misunderstand it, or they'll just apply Title 42 and they'll just push him away for the time being, and something could happen to him. I mean, who knows, right? Because it's
Right.
then they may have to apply for asylum in Mexico, or they could be questioned about potential resettlement issue. But that was something interesting that I saw, that the Title 42 is really not being used against Ukrainians, and I understand it, but I'm concerned about the application of it against Russian nationals who may be eligible for asylum, but they are not being allowed to
Yeah.
make that claim yet.
The whole use of it is flawed, because if you think about it, if you're concerned about COVID and you're using it on one part of the population, you're kind of saying that these people have COVID and others don't. And so it's just a weird way of using a law. But that's what the administration under Trump did. I mean, that's the whole idea, is to find ways, um, sneaky ways to restrict immigration, and that was one of them. Well, Martin, moving on. This is our last section. As I said, this was a busy week. There was a State Department report, and they're starting to report these or publish these reports about the backlog that's going on, and we're certainly seeing it with our clients. The State Department recently published something about those who are waiting in line to get an interview, an immigrant visa interview outside. What did you think about those numbers?
I don't know. It's just kind of like listening to the city officials saying, "Hey, we have these new new reports are coming out," and then you said, "Oh, well, great," but the crime is increasing in the area. It's just like, oh, so it's something similar. Like, you guys are being transparent, but you're telling us there's 450, 70,000 backlog cases, and so people would understand better. Typically, people that are not eligible for applying for quote unquote green card, the adjustment of status in the U.S., have to process their immigrant visa case at a consulate, typically in their home country.
Yeah.
And so again, typically it's a two-step process. Petition is being filed by the petitioner. Once it's approved, the case goes over to the National Visa Center. They basically stage it. It has to be, then the case has to documentarily qualify to move for the appointment at the consulate. And what we're hearing is that, there's about 30-some thousand cases that are ready to move forward, but there's another 450,000, or out of those 450, 470,000, 30,000 can move forward.
Yeah.
And you still have this backlogs akin, similar to the immigration court backlog, right? And so, it's like, great, you're giving us all these numbers and these reports, but it's pretty depressing knowing that.
Because, it's like turning the dagger. It's like, yeah. And just clarify, I don't know if I mentioned the exact word, the numbers, but it's close to 470,000 people who are already, the government said, hey, you got everything. You got all your documents, information. We got everything.
Right.
Just have to wait. And out of those 30-some thousand, and then so that leaves like what, 436 something, 430,000 approximately individuals who are still waiting, and that includes our clients. I hate to say it, we deal a lot with Ciudad Juarez, and we're experiencing this delay as well. It's taking 15 months from the time that the
used to be 5 or 6 months.
Yeah,
right?
It was quick. It was very quick. Yeah, now it's taking, from the time that the government says, yeah, you guys are documentarily qualified, which means we have all your documents, we have all your information needed for the next step, which is scheduling the interview. Now, from that point, as you mentioned, it was just taking maybe 3 to 5 months. Now it's taking roughly about 15 months. So one tip I do have, and this is something that next week I will be at a conference in El Paso. I'll be presenting there. But there's going to be a State Department official. So if you're hearing this, watch out, because I'm going to come after you. What happened here is that what we've been experiencing, and there's been some unofficial reports by colleagues, is that they haven't been giving us the interview notices, us being the attorneys, and they might, in some cases, they're giving the interview notices and they're sending them out to the client, but not to the attorney. And what if the client does not check their emails? That's not good. And if we don't get it, and the client's not checking their emails, then they're going to miss out. They're going to miss out on their interview. So we don't want that. And so if you have a case right now, if you're waiting for a visa interview, that's going to come through an email by the State Department. Just check your email, check your junk email to make sure you got that interview. And if you do, and if you have an attorney, notify your attorney right away.
It's pretty scary because one of the things that we also tell prospective clients is, obviously certain cases are very complex and it benefits you to have an attorney, but also to get the copy correspondence from the government agency, and that has been on an uptick in the last few weeks. So that's pretty concerning. Yeah.
So this has been our news wrap. This is, like I mentioned, it's been pretty busy. I hope you have found it useful. And if so, don't forget to like and subscribe and help us reach our goal of 1,000 followers. That would be great. Because it's folks like you all that really motivate us to do what we do. And we truly appreciate your support. So thank you. And Martin is showing the Law Pilot. He wants to talk about the Law Pilot app, an app that Martin and I developed. And we were talking about receiving, this show is about giving you the latest news, right? Well, this app, what it does, it will send an alert to you when there are some important news that affect your case. And it has a lot of other features. Martin, you want to talk about them?
Well, I mean, you said it. This is something that we've came up with back in 2018 when Mr. Trump was keen on deporting people, and so we wanted to be there for our clients and be able to educate them and be able to respond if they had an emergency, and also just let them know about any kind of breaking news that could have an effect on their case or just overall about any kind of changes. And so this big red button connects the user with us or with the attorney that is providing these services. We are able to geolocate you through GPS on the maps. Whenever you send out the alert, we're able to listen to the audio, which is being recorded and uploaded to the cloud for our review. So it is just a fantastic tool. If you don't have it, just scan that QR code on the screen, and you can set it up and get connected with us. Something that we're extremely proud of, if you want to be connected to us, if you want to let your family members or friends know that you have an emergency, you can just set them up in the contacts, and they'll get the same message as we do. So scan that QR code and register with us.
And Joe adds that, and we don't sell your data like Facebook. And so that was from Joe.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, you want to pop your head up?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So there's Joe, our producer. And so thank you all for joining us today, and we'll be back at it next week. Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys. See you, Nick.
Bye-bye.